Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and this is day 20 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be pork belly, and today is an active recovery day. So right now, I'm going to be taking you through some stretches for the deep front line to help open up the hips, because your hips don't lie, and your hips right now are telling me that you need these stretches. Now let's get started. Next, we are going to be moving on to the deep front line. For the deep front line, we are going to be getting into a split squat position. For the split squat, for this one, I'm going to be using a mat because the turf is very unforgiving on the knees. And what we want to be doing for this one right over here is we're going to be doing a couple of different variations. For the first split squat, what we want to do is we want the toes pointing out. So what we're doing with this one right over here is on the back leg, toes out, and then on the front leg, you want to just try and get as much of a nice stretch in that back hip, and you could just use your hands as support. So we're going to do 60 seconds starting now, and just kind of use your hands on your knee. That way you can maintain an upright posture and get a little bit more involvement of the hip. By placing the toes pointing out, we're going to be targeting a little bit more of the medial fibers in the hip compartment. The next one, we're going to go and get a little bit more into the anterior fibers, but right now, this is great for targeting the medial fibers. Really try and get a good stretch in that front of the hip, and the inner front of the hip. So get as low as you can so that you get a nice stretch. Just a few seconds left. Okay, now we are going to switch sides. Same thing with the leg that is back. You are pointing the toes out, and we are getting into a split squat position. 60 seconds starting now. You could also, if it's a little bit too intense, you could also lean on your forearm. If you have decent hip mobility, you can get a little bit taller. The more you lean over, the more deep the stretch is going to be, because then you can focus on the hip. As you start elevating, what's going to happen is you're going to start to place the abdominal fascia under tension, which is going to transfer into the pelvis. So it becomes a little bit more superficial. So if you're really restricted, you may even just need to lean forward like this and really focus on feeling it on the inner part of the hip. Okay, now we're going to switch legs, and we're going to do the same thing, but with the toes pointing straight ahead. So we are getting into a split squat. We want that back leg nice and straight. Try and get that hip as close to the ground as you can. And again, the toes for this one are pointing straight ahead. 60 seconds starting now. So now you should be feeling it in the anterior fibers, not quite as much on the inside. And if you can even just get a little bit deeper to the ground. Really open up that hip. You could also squeeze your glute. By squeezing your glute, you're actively going into hip extension, which is going to further stretch the front of the hip. Plus, if you have issues with poor motor control, that's also a great bonus, because if you have poor motor control, you're going to actively engage the muscles that are going to reinforce that hip stretch. And a lot of people have very weak glutes, so their motor control is not too great in the lower limb. We're going to switch sides now. Same thing. We got the toes pointing straight ahead. We are in that split squat position. 60 seconds starting now. After this, we just got 2 left. The last 2, though, are not going to be very pleasant. You may have a little bit of trouble. Just do what you can, even if you can't do it perfectly. I know I'm not going to be able to do these last 2 perfectly. Progress, not perfection. As long as you can do it a little bit better the next time you try it, that's all that matters. And relax. And that concludes the deep front line. Next, we are going to be focusing on the arm line. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.